In this lesson, we're going to answer the essential question, how do I solve quadratic equations by factoring? So in this lesson, we're actually going to find out what the variables can be, not just factor them and stop. We'll factor them and then go find out what it can be. Now, when we talk about quadratic functions or quadratic equations, in the past, we've looked at linear equations, which has a y equals 2x plus 4 is an example of one. And if we graph it, that's a linear equation. We're looking at equations that have a variable that's squared. So in this case, it would be a quadratic equation if one of them is squared. And many times you also have the x squared and the x in the equation. So x squared equal 81 is a quadratic equation, or x squared plus x plus 4 is another equals 0 is another type of equation. Okay, so let's get into solving these, and you'll find that all quadratics have to be equal to 0 in order to solve them. Number 1, we have 16m squared minus 49 equals 0. Nothing will factor out of the 16 or the 49. So I do notice that they're both perfect squares, so I can do a difference of squares. So I'm going to do 4m in both parentheses, minus 7 in both. And I can see that nothing would come out of the 4 or the 7, so I was correct in my factoring. I'm going to set 4m minus 7 equal to 0, this term, and I'm going to solve it for m. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides and get 4m equals 7. Come back and divide by 4, and m is 7/4. So that's one choice for the variable. Now set the other one equal to 0, the 4m plus 7. Subtract 7 from both sides to solve it. You end up with 4m equals negative 7. Divide by 4 on both sides, and you have m equals negative 7/4. When you list your answer, you list them in brackets where it doesn't get confused with an ordered pair. Negative 7/4 and positive 7/4 would be the answer to this equation. And you could go back, and it's a good thing to do, in your calculator and put in 16 in parentheses for the m, negative 7/4, close your parentheses and square it, minus 49 equals 0. Minus 49, and when you hit enter, it should equal 0 because that is a true solution. Also go back and plug in the 7/4 and do the same thing. Plug in the calculator is the only true way to know that you have not made a mistake. To check your solution. All right, let's look at number 2. It's not a difference of squares. Nothing will factor out, so we're ready to just start factoring it. X and x, two terms that we can multiply together to get a positive 81. We're getting a positive 81, so in order to get a positive, you've got to multiply a negative times a negative or a positive times a positive, but to get a negative, when you add them, you're going to have to do the negative plus the negative. So we're going to have an x minus 9 and an x plus 9. That would multiply together to get us a positive 89. Excuse me, I might have said plus 9, but it's x minus 9 and x minus 9. When you multiply negative 9 together and negative 9 together, you do get positive 81. And if you add negative 9 and negative 9, you get negative 18. So I'm going to write this, since these are the same thing, x minus 9, x minus 9. That is truly x minus 9 squared. So we only have one real factor. So this quadratic equation will only have one solution, because when you solve either of them, you would get x equals 9. So the only number that would work in making that a true statement would be 9. Plug it in your calculator and check it. All right, let's look at the next one. On this one, 3 would factor out before we even start. So we're left with 3 times x squared minus 15x plus 18 equals 0. When you factor the 3 out, you've got the x squared minus 5x plus 6. So we're going to factor the inside term, and we're going to have, we got to have two negatives. So 2 and 3 would work because that would give us -5. And when you solve each of these equal to 0, set x minus 3 equal to 0, you get x equals 3. X minus 2 equals 0, you get x is 2. Now, when you're finding these answers, you don't have to involve the 3 because you're just using the factors of it, and 3 was factored out. So in this case, on this equation, 3 and 2 in your brackets would work, and you would plug them in, and you would get a true statement.